If there is one thing I can say about this episode, and I think regardless if you hate or love this episode, I think we can all agree upon one thing, and that is, Magane is a very wordy little one. Wow, the amount of dialogue she has is pretty ridiculous. So, with that being said, Magane is front and center throughout this episode of Recreators. And this is the type of episode I feel like many are kind of going to be divided on. Some are probably going to be saying like it was a shit episode, and some are going to be saying it was a great episode, and we'll see where it goes. I'm kind of curious to see how you Chibits feel about this episode of Recreators, and please be honest in the comments below, because I actually really want to know how all of you feel. But before I get into my personal thoughts of how I felt like overall how the episode was, this episode kind of dives into Sota and Magane as characters and lets us know kind of what has been going on. Why has Sota been holding back his, thoughts of what's going on? Why is he not revealing information? But also how he is being used. And the overall plot point with Magane and how she was manipulating Sota was kind of settled within this episode. And the way it was done, it was very entertaining. Because I am one that really loves villains that are dialogue heavy, but have, witty dialogue. The dialogue is very witty, and it makes you really think. And if you pay attention, you can just see what type of character you're currently dealing with. And Magane as a character, we knew she was a villain. I mean, she's killed people already, the way her design is and everything, she is a design of a stereotypical villain. But her dialogue really fits so well with her abilities, but also certain, villains I really love in literature. She manipulates people by actually telling lies and some truths here and there. I mean, when she's sitting there talking to Sota, you could see how she's trying to manipulate him. She's trying to twist him and break him in a way to where he falls down the wrong path. And that is what villains should do. And especially villains from a series that uses a lot of words. For instance, if there is a book series or whatever you're reading, or an anime series, TV show, whatever, that has a villain that mainly uses words to commit evil acts, then we need a villain that's able to get under your skin and manipulate you and make you do things that you normally wouldn't do, because they're able to read you and understand you by just looking at the way you move your body around, but also how you phrase your words. And that is the type of character Magane is. She was looking into Sota and realizing what type of person he was, and then taking advantage of him, manipulating him to do things that she wanted him to do, which is what a villain should do in any form of literature. If they're written properly, they should always go after certain characters and kind of make them, change or get, a little bit twisted, or make it to where they have to overcome the worst parts about themselves. And that's the type of character Magane is. She made Sota feel very uncomfortable in realizing what is wrong with him and how he fucked up, but also he felt so much grief because he realized what he has done. He hasn't just caused the death of someone he cared about in the past, but also is jealous about, but he also indirectly is the cause from Mamika's death too. So he felt the pain and pressure from that throughout this, and that's kind of what Magane was trying to do. She was getting under his skin and letting him just twist to where he becomes corrupted. And like I said, that's how villains should be. They should get under the main character's skin. They should be able to manipulate them to do things that they normally wouldn't do. That's exactly what a nemesis should do. Make it to where you realize how they need to better themselves. And that is what she was doing. And the way she went about it and all that, she actually would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for Meteora and also Yuya, I think that's his name, stepping in and stopping it. So it just goes to show that she's a character that is very interesting, but you can't let your guard around her because of the way she's always just, a basket full of lies. You don't know what's necessarily truths or lies because she does both. And I especially love the scene with Alice and her. When she tells Alice the truth, that was a stunning way to use that character, because it was so smart and witty that honestly I was just surprised the way it was done. Because remember what we saw from that scene. Mamika's sitting there dying. She's bleeding out, she can barely say anything, and you have it to where Mamika does actually get out what she needs to say. And us, the audience, can piece things together and realize what she was trying to say and what she was meaning. And so, basically, she did say things, what she needed to. And she gave it to, Magane. Magane, in turn, she was tasked with relaying the message to Alice. And obviously, Alice is like, you better not lie to me, tell me the truth. And so, Yandora Magane, she took it upon herself to actually tell the truth. But twist it a little bit, because at the end of the day, when you really look at what she said, she didn't necessarily lie. She just manipulated the way the words came out to where you can interpret other things. And that really makes her an interesting villain, because this villain could sometimes manipulate you by even telling the truth. And even though her character is based upon lying, she was able to do such a heinous thing by telling the truth. And I like that about her character and how she was able to do that, just saying certain things to make Alice get the wrong idea. Now, speaking of all of this, okay, many might look at Mamika's death as very lazy writing, as like a cliche trope of a death not being able to get out the words that you want to say to someone, and then you just die before you say it. I can understand many, looking at this episode and saying it was very cliche, and in some ways, I do agree with that. I can't agree with that. However, we gotta factor all of this in, all of the characters and everything, okay? So just hear me out for a second before you conclude that this episode was complete shit. Remember that these characters that are our main characters of this story, they are from books, anime, games, brought into our world, and so they have their own cliches, their own tropes from their series. Now, we do know that some of the characters, they can expand past what they were in their, books or whatever, and they can become something completely new, something different. They can have different traits that never was shown in the books, manga, anime, whatever, because they have less restrictions, or they have no restrictions now. And so we have seen changes amongst these characters. However, we also have to remember that the way that was done, Mamika did say what she needed to say. She didn't necessarily die before she said anything of importance. And we also gotta factor in what type of character Mamika is. She is a magical girl. And in magical girls' characters, like their designs as characters, they are naive and they believe that all people can be good. They're good-willed people. And you gotta remember what type of world she is from. So, looking at all these little details, it's safe to assume that that is why she trusted Magane so much. Why she's like, please tell her the message, is because she thinks everybody is good. She was naive, yes, but it fits with the character. So, it's kind of like, it's cliche, but it's an understandable cliche because of the type of character she is. But then we also gotta look at Alice, too. Many are gonna be looking at it, they don't blame Mamika or Magane, they're gonna look at, Alice and be like, holy shit, she is fucking shit. And yes, I kind of agree with that. She is pretty shit. I mean, oh my god, she's pretty stupid, actually. And for her to even go along and believe someone that is just a known liar is very stupid, too. But we gotta remember what type of character Alice is. Alice is a type of character that is very one-dimensional. You could tell that the writer, the person that wrote her character, didn't dive into her enough and give her enough details to make it to where she could see other points of view instead of just, always assuming things are attacking people. So, I think what's going on here is not the case of actual bad writing from recreators, but actually bad writing from the writers inside the story. That's what I think is going on here. For instance, Alice is just a shitty written character, not from recreators' writers, but the writer inside of Recreators just wrote a shitty character, and that is why she is so dumb. Why she does things like she does is because she's just so one-dimensional with her ideals, goals, and all of that. And I feel like that's a really smart way to kind of cover up some negatives with your series. Because, I mean, normally, if I am watching a series and I see shit like this, I would just condemn that. I'd be like, this is fucking trash. Like, this is horrible. But at the same time, though, I know what the series has been doing. It's very self-aware of what it's been doing, especially with all its tropes and themes and all that it's done with the characters. And I feel like that was very deliberate, the way this was done. Especially with Alice's character and how she was able to believe Magane and all that was because of the way her character was written. So, very interesting stuff. Very interesting the way this series does stuff like that. And I do feel like it was bad just the way in terms of what it was done. Because at the end of the day, it was the writers kind of putting the show on a railroad track and kind of shifting it down an obvious route. But besides just the obvious, it was a good way to kind of turn a cliche into more of an acceptable cliche because the way this series is written in the first place. So I could stomach it. It isn't the best thing I've ever seen, but it's okay. It's nothing amazing. So yeah, overall, I think this episode did a very good job with what it had. I mean, I especially like the scene with Yuya going up against Magane, and, you know, he's trying to fight her, and eventually, basically, he can't hurt her at all, and we kind of find out, basically, that he cannot do damage to her until she dies with his weapon because of how she breaks, you know, reality. She goes against the laws of physics and everything because of her ability. So that's crazy for her to be able to do something like that. So yeah, Magane is pretty broken depending on the situation, and I'm expecting more from her, and I would really love to see more from her because she's a really cool character. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I love you all so much. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.